Good day, everyone. I am Christian Ice, an entrepreneur passionate about helping schools, educators, and learners adapt to the rapid changes in our digital world. Today's episode is about the power of instructional leadership. So, the general objective of our episode today is to explain how instructional leadership influences teacher development, school performance, and students' learning by integrating global theories, local research, and DepEd policy frameworks. So I would love and appreciate if you could share some insights relative to this or even improvements that can be made of to learn more from our diverse experiences in this particular topic. So my approach in the discussion would be more of narrative based from the actual experiences of the people I know, the researches, experience, and even the things that I've learned in all of my mentors throughout my almost 9 years in education field. So, before we begin, let me start with a short situation. In a small public school, a school head began his day doing what he always did, checking paperwork. But as he passed a classroom, he saw a teacher struggling with her lesson plan. He stopped, listened, and helped her improve her strategy. That simple pause changed everything: her confidence, her lesson, and even the students' participation. My point is this: instructional leadership starts when school heads focus on improving teaching and learning, not just managing tasks. Because the impact is immediate, like teachers feel supported and the students learn better. That is why, before we explore theories, allow me to ask our starter key question. I want to seek first to understand what is your thoughts about this, my fellow colleagues. If you were a school head, what's the first thing you would do to ensure every child learns better? So, now let's hold that question in mind as we go through the lesson. Let us remember the key message here: leading for learning. One time, the same school head started visiting classroom daily. He didn't evaluate. He observed to understand teachers' challenges. You know what? Teacher later said things like, "Sir, when you visit us, we feel motivated to improve." That is why everyday expression of the instructional leadership. And the point is, instructional leadership means leading for learning, not for compliance. Because leadership comes meaningful when it connects directly to the classroom instruction. Now, as we continue, another quick story that I will share to you. Every morning at exactly 7 a.m., a school principal, let's call him Principal Jacob, would place the same three items on his desk: a lesson plan notebook, a classroom observation form, and a cup of coffee he never actually finished. Why? Because every single day, Sir Jacob believed the same thing. If I understand instruction, I can improve learning. He didn't have a degree in research. He didn't decode theories. He just did the work, visiting classroom, talking to the teachers, checking students' progress. And years later, he wondered, am I doing what great instructional leaders around the world do? Or is there something I'm missing? This presentation answered that question. And today, we're going to present on the 2024 study titled A Systematic Review Analysis on Instructional Leadership Styles. It shows us where studies were done, how they were done, and what they focus on. The researcher wanted to know four things. Where were the studies done? How were the studies conducted? What did they focus on? And which frameworks were used? If Sir Jacob was watching this, he would ask, which countries do leadership the way I do? And what can I copy, improve, or innovate? But before we go deeper, let's return to Sir Jacob. One afternoon, he walked into a grade 4 classroom. He saw a teacher trying her best to manage the class while explaining long division. The lesson was hard. The students were confused, and the teacher, though dedicated, wasn't sure how to fix it. Sir Jacob didn't scold her. He didn't give a memo. He sat beside a group of students, listened, and later coached the teacher privately. That small action That is instructional leadership. And this study helps us understand where action like this happen worldwide and what patterns we should learn from. Now, how did they study the research? They collected studies from 2012 to 2022, 10 full years of global research. So, what did they find? Most studies came from Asia, the US, and Africa. Only a few came from the Philippines. What does this tell us? Instructional leadership is growing worldwide, but locally, we still have a lot of research to contribute. I think if Sir Jacob wanted to compare his practices, most example wouldn't come from our own country yet. So, most studies focus on student achievement, teacher performance, and school improvement, which makes sense, right? Instructional leadership is about teaching and learning. So, research tries to test the connection. The most common frameworks were Hallinger and Murphy. It is a direct effect model. These help researchers analyze whether leadership actions influence teacher behavior or students' outcome. If Sir Jacob asks, is visiting classroom worth it? This model help find the answer. So, what does this study mean? Instructional leadership is expanding globally. The Philippines needs more local research or studies. Principals who focus on instruction can significantly improve learning. And by using evidence, we can lead our school with more clarity and confidence, just like Sir Jacob did. One classroom, one conversation, and one learning at a time. Before we dive into the findings of the study, I want to start with a story. A simple moment inside a school that shows why curriculum evaluation matters. Early one morning before classes started, a teacher, let's call her Teacher Maria, sat quietly in the faculty room. She stared at her lesson plan, confused and a bit frustrated. Her students struggled with the topic the day before, and she knew something wasn't working in the curriculum. Then the principal, Agustin, walked in, not with paperwork or memos, but with a gentle question. How can our curriculum support you better? That single moment changed everything. Principal Agustin didn't scold. He didn't tell Teacher Maria what to do. Instead, he opened the curriculum guide with her. They looked at the learning competencies together. They talked about which activities were working and which needed adjusting, and what support she needed. It felt like teamwork, not principal versus teacher, but principal and teacher. That day, Teacher Maria left the room feeling understood and empowered. Here's the point that we need to remember: curriculum evaluation must be collaborative. Principals should evaluate the curriculum with teachers, not by themselves. And the point is this: principals must evaluate the curriculum with teachers, not alone. This is simple, doable, and powerful. It can start with just one conversation like the Teacher Maria experience. What the study wanted to know is, when we connected to the story to the research, Ariatas in 2023 wanted to understand one simple question: how do principals use curriculum evaluation as part of their instructional leadership? In other words, how do principals guide teachers and improve learning by checking and improving the curriculum? The study used critical reflection. That simply means the researcher looked back at the real experiences inside a private school in Manila. So the first finding is very clear. Principals cannot lead instruction if they do not evaluate the curriculum. The curriculum is the foundation. It influences teaching, and teaching influences learning. It's like a chain. It starts with the principal, up to the curriculum, and the teaching and the influence of student learning. So, the second finding says principals should not evaluate the curriculum alone. It must involve teachers, department heads, and the principal itself. Like, everybody has a significant role for this. The third finding highlights something important. Curriculum evaluation leads naturally to teacher development. It results in mentoring, coaching, and better teaching strategies. Teachers grow because someone is guiding the curriculum, not leaving them alone. And now, for the finding number four, this is the challenge. The problem of administrative tasks get in the way. Principals are buried in administrative work, reports, meetings, compliance. And when that happens, they become busy with paperwork instead of leading instruction. The way we see it, the study presents a simple framework resembling a tree. The roots, that is the curriculum. Trunks, instructional leadership. The leaves would be the teaching practices, and the fruit is the student learning. So here's the study in one breath. Curriculum evaluation is essential for instructional leadership. It must be done collaboratively. It leads to better teaching and teacher development, but we have to understand that principal must balance administrative tasks to lead learning. So, before we talk about instructional leadership and we continue it, let me tell you another story about a teacher, let's call him Sir Chris, and he once worked in a classroom or school where the principal barely showed up in the classrooms. No clear goal, no direction, no support. Every was just trying to survive the day. But one school year, everything changed. A new principal arrived, and what happened next became the turning point in Sir Chris' teaching life. On the very first day, the new principal gathered everyone in the library. Calm voice, simple message. This year, our mission is clear. We will improve student reading performance by 20%. And you won't do it alone. We will do it together. Sir Chris still remembered the first thing or the first meeting not because of fancy words, but because it was the first time someone dared to give their school a clear, focused direction. That moment was exactly what Hallinger and Murphy talk about in the instructional leadership model. Effective principals define the mission clearly, just like that new principal who said, "Here's where we're going, and here's how we'll get there." Sir Chris felt something he hadn't felt in a long time, and that is certainty. So, here's what I want you to remember. Great leaders start by setting clear academic goals. Because when the teacher or direction is clear, teachers stop guessing and start moving in the same direction. A week later, Principal Lauda started visiting classes not to punish, not to judge, but to support. When she walked into Sir Chris' room, she smiled, took notes, and later said, "Your energy is strong. Because let's work on pacing so students stay with you. No fear, no guilt, just guidance." This is the second part of the model, managing the instructional program. It means checking if lesson match the curriculum, monitoring student progress, giving helpful feedback. Here's the second message. Instructional leaders improve teaching, not by controlling teachers, but by supporting them. Because when the teacher feel guided, not judged, their teaching gets better. As months passed, something's changed. The faculty room felt lighter, students followed rules without fear, celebrations became normal like small awards for good and shoutouts for teachers. Sir Chris once said, "It felt like the school finally breathed." And this is the third role, creating a positive learning climate. When leaders value teamwork, when they recognize success, when discipline becomes fair and predictable, learning grows. Remember this, a healthy school culture is not accidental. Leaders create it. Because the students and teachers thrive in places where they feel safe, supported, and seen. So, what did Hallinger and Murphy discover? Great instructional leaders define clear goals, support and monitor teaching, and create a positive learning climate. That's it. Three rows, one purpose. Improve students' learning. So, at this part, we're going to talk to anonymous pre-service teacher walk into her final practice teaching class holding a stack of unfinished lesson plans. She wasn't nervous about the teaching, she was nervous about something else. Last week, her supervising teacher told her, leadership in the classroom doesn't start when you become a principal, it starts today. That sentence confused her. She thought leadership belonged to principals, not future teachers like her. But what happened that morning changed how she understood leadership forever. When she arrived, she noticed her classmates struggling to finish a learning activity for their science demo. Without being asked, she sat beside him and said, let's plan this together. I have an idea. Slowly, three more classmates joined them. In just 15 minutes, a group activity was born, complete, creative, and doable. She didn't lead by giving orders, she led by sharing. Here's my point. Leadership is not just for principals. Start leading with learning with others. And now, you don't need a title. All you need is initiative. And that is the point number one, shared leadership. Now, why shared leadership matters and why you should do this? Because shared leadership makes teaching easier and more inspiring. Just like how one student's initiative lifted an entire demo lesson, you can lighten someone else's load and they can lighten yours. That same afternoon, the supervising teacher asked the class, why did your group activity work so well? The anonymous pre service teacher answered, because we focus on what the students will actually learn, not on making the activity look impressive. That was her second discovery. Good leadership keeps the spotlight on learning, not on performance. So, here's what I want you to do. Always ask, will this improve learning? Before making any decision, make this question your compass. Why learning focus matters. And the point number two, that is learning focus leadership. Because when you focus on learning, everything else falls into place. Planning, teaching, even classroom management. You teach better because you know exactly what you're aiming for. Days later, one anonymous pre service teacher received feedback. Your lesson was strong, but let's sharpen the questioning techniques. Instead of feeling criticized, she felt supported because the conversation was gentle, human, and helpful. And that would lead us to the point number three. Instructional leadership is equal to conversation. So, my point is very simple. Talk with teachers. Don't talk at them. Make space for dialogue, coaching, and reflection. Why conversations matter? Because people grow when they are heard, not when they are ordered. One respectful conversation can change a teacher career. During her last week of practice teaching, she ran out of bond paper for her printed activities. Without hesitation, the supervising teacher handed her a fresh ream. You focus on teaching, she said. I'll take care of this. At that moment, she realized leadership is service. And that would lead us to the point number four, service driven leadership. My point is you have to help first and lead second. Leadership is not about authority, it's about support. Why service matters? Because when teachers feel supported, they teach with confidence. Simple acts of service create a powerful teaching. In her final demo, she noticed one student sitting quietly, struggling with the activity. Instead of ignoring him, she knelt beside his chair and whispered, let's try this together. That small moment made the student smile and participate. It reminded her that leadership means lifting those who need it most. And that would lead us to the point number five, equity oriented leadership. So here's the point, give extra help to those who need extra help. Equity is not treating all students the same, it's giving each student what they need. Why equity matters? Because when every learner is supported, no one gets left behind. And that's the heart of instructional leadership. So, what did Vicaldo in 2019 teach us? Filipino pre-service teachers believe instructional leadership is shared, learning focus, a conversation, service driven, and equity centered. The truth is, you don't wait to be a principal to lead. You start the moment you decide to help someone learn. And for the final message, leadership is not a title, it's a mindset. And the best time to practice it is now. Now, we're going to explore a study that examine how well principals perform their instructional leadership roles. But before we dive into the results, let me take you to a real moment, an actual experience, a moment that shows what instructional leadership looks like beyond the documents. And this is the instructional leadership of school administration and what the study reveals. In the next story, there was once a young public school teacher, let's call him Sir Lloyd. One rainy Monday morning, Teacher Lloyd rushed to school feeling overwhelmed. His grade 9 class had been struggling with reading comprehension, and he felt he was failing them. When he arrived at school, he found the principals already walking around classroom, quietly observing, smiling, and greeting students, and Principal Jennifer noticed Teacher Lloyd is stressed and asked gently, "How can I help?" That simple question caught him off guard. Instead of giving orders, the principal listened. Teacher Lloyd shared that his students struggled with reading materials. Without hesitation, Principal Jenny said, "Let's redesign their lesson together. I'll sit in your class tomorrow, just to support, not to evaluate." And he did. She became brought extra printed materials, and even volunteered to group the students. That week, the class performed better. Teacher Lloyd felt lighter, and the students, they felt seen. This is instructional leadership in real life. And now, let's talk about what the research found. To relate to this part of the discussion, the study by Banua and his colleagues in 2023 wanted to answer a simple but important question. How good are principals at instructional leadership? And in which areas do they excel? To answer this, the researchers used five leadership areas: instructional leadership, learning environment, HR management and development, parent and community partnership, and school operation. So the big key result is the principal perform very satisfactorily across all areas, meaning they guide teaching well, they support teachers, they maintain a positive school environment, they build community partnership, they manage operation. And all five pillars showed very satisfactory. Instructional leadership, they guide teaching effectively. In learning environment, schools are safe and supported. In HR management development, teachers are trained and assisted. In parent and community partnership, they build good rapport with stakeholders. And for the school operation, they created the systems and processes run smoothly. Remember that Teacher Lloyd, the principal in his story, embodied exactly what this study validated: listening, guiding, supporting, managing, and partnering. They are not just tasks, they are pillars. And here's the reason: when you strengthen one pillar, you strengthen the entire school. Just like how supporting one teacher improved one class, and that class influenced the whole learning environment. So, just like Teacher Lloyd discovered, leadership isn't always about being the smartest or loudest. Sometimes, leadership begins with one simple act: how can I help? That is instructional leadership, and that is how schools grow. So, in the next part, we're going to talk about the DepEd Order 24 to 2020, the PPSSH, the National Adoption and Implementation of the Philippine Professional Standards for School Heads. Before we talk about standards, leadership, and policy, let me tell you another story about someone I'll simply call the school head, Dr. Dexter, just a leader whose story might feel familiar. On his first week as the new school head, Principal Dexter stood in front of his office doorway at 6:45 a.m. The campus was unusually quiet, but his mind wasn't. He was worried. The school had low reading scores. Teachers were unmotivated. Parents rarely attended his meetings. He felt like he was handed a sinking ship. As he looked around, he whispered to himself, "Where do I begin?" That morning, he noticed a grade 7 student waiting alone outside the gate. The child looked nervous. The school head approached and simply said, "Good morning. Are you okay?" The students nodded and said softly, "Sir, wala po kasi si mama. Wala pong maghahatid pero gusto ko pong pumasok." In that short moment, the school head realized something powerful. Every decision he would make, every plan, every meeting, every program was ultimately about this child. What should school heads really do? The simple encounter pushed him to ask himself, if everything I do is for the learner, then what exactly should I be focusing on? And this is where DepEd Order number 24, 2020 becomes a compass. And here's the point I want you to take away. School heads are not expected to do everything. They are expected to focus on five key areas and only the five PPSSH domain. If you understand these five domains, you immediately understand what effective school leadership looks like. This is about, in the domain number one, it is about leading strategically. This is about shaping direction, vision, mission, school goals. Remember the school head at the gate? That moment became his turning point. He rewrote the school's vision with the teachers, and together they made it specific. Every learner feels safe, seen, and supported. That small strategic shift guided every school initiative after. The next domain is managing school operation and resources. He reviewed the school resources like chairs, modules, teacher loads, schedules. He discovered that two teachers were handling six preparation each. They were exhausted. He redistributed loads, wrote simple guidelines, and slowly, the system became lighter. Leadership is not magic. Sometimes, it's just fixing what's already there. The next domain is about focusing on teaching and learning. To address the reading problem, he didn't blame anyone. Instead, he sat in one class every morning, just observing learning. Teachers felt supported, not judged. Within months, the reading program improved because the teachers felt valued. Domain number four is about developing self and others. He knew growth starts with him. He attended webinars, asked mentors, and encouraged his teachers to do the same. He reminded the teachers, kung ako nag-aaral para sa inyo, sana kayo din para sa bata. The last domain is building connection. He met with the fair parents, sometimes five at a time, sometimes 50. He talked with barangay leaders, asked for support, and built trust. Little by little, the community started showing up. Because one thing became clear: school grow faster when they don't grow alone. Because the learner is at the center, and here's the single most important reason why these five domains matter. They, they all point back to the learner. The story of the students at the gate became his anchor. Every strategy, every operation, every meeting, every connection, all of it leads to one outcome: better learning for the child. So here's the entire policy in one breath. PPSSH tells school head what good leadership looks like through five domains: lead strategically, manage operation, strengthen teaching, show or grow people, and build connection. When the school heads lead well, teachers teach well, and learners learn well. So here's what I want you to do. Use the five PPSSH domains as your personal leadership checklist, whether you're a teacher, an inspiring school head, or a leader in a training. I think it would be better if we could ask ourselves every week, which domain did I strengthen today? Because leadership isn't a job description, it's a daily commitment. Months later, Principal Dexter saw the grade 7 students again, this time confidently leading the reading corner in class. The child smiled and said, "Sir, kaya ko na po." And suddenly, everything made sense. This is why. we lead. Do great principals actually teach or make teachers better? According to Hieguo and Abazi in 2024, the answer is strong yes, and today we'll break down how and why. The results were striking. The study found that instructional leadership strongly predicts teachers' professional development. This means 74% of teacher professional development can be explained by the quality of the principal instructional leadership. In education research, that is an incredibly strong effect. Teachers who had strong instructional leaders improve in lesson planning, teaching strategies, classroom management, confidence and motivation, participation in training, and collaboration with colleagues. The principal is not just a manager, they are a catalyst for teacher growth. And the study once asked one main question: does a school head instructional leadership help teachers grow professionally? It also examines additional areas like the profile of the teachers, the evaluation, the differences in perception, and how leadership influences teaching and research. But the heart of the study remains simple. Do good leaders help teachers become better? So, to summarize, instructional leadership plays a major role in your school success. Teachers grow when leaders empower them. Growth in teaching research and service translate to better students' outcomes. In education, leadership is not about position, it's about influence. And influence begins with support. When leaders inspire teachers, teachers inspire students. And that is how transformation begins. As we explore a powerful question, does the leadership of the school principals really influence how active students are and how well they learn? A 2024 study from another country gives us a clear answers. But before we dive into the findings, another question emerged. Do supportive principals create active learners who perform better academically? So the first finding is very clear. Instructional leadership increases student activeness. When principals support teachers, observe classes, give feedback, and help improve teaching, students become more involved. This means matches the school head's experience. Leadership made the quiet class come alive. The next finding, instructional leadership improves students' learning outcomes. Because better learning leads to better teaching, leads to better grade and performance. And when principals focus on learning, the entire school culture shifts. The next finding is instructional leadership strengthen both students' activeness and learning outcomes. It's a chain reaction, a learning domino effect. It starts with the leadership, the activeness, and the learning outcomes. And here is the simplified model, and this study supports the LAO model, the LAO model. L stands for the leadership, leads to activeness, and leads to outcomes. The principal pushes the first domino, and the rest will follow. And the point is, if you are a school leader, focus on improving teacher every single day. Visit classroom, support teachers, and ask what they need. Instructional leadership is the most powerful tool. Now, instructional leadership, synthesis, and reflection. We're wrapping everything up and we'll look at what instructional leadership truly means, why it matters, and what one action any leader can do tomorrow to make teaching and learning better. The first summary point is instructional leadership is the heart of educational leadership. All effective leadership starts with one core mission: improve teaching and learning. When principals guide teachers, shape curriculum, and set a positive learning climate, learning outcome rise. Now, here's what research tells us. About the theory, Hallinger and Murphy highlight the principal roles: shaping mission, managing instruction, creating a learning climate. And for the practice, Filipino and global studies shows that leadership boosts teacher motivation and performance. And for the policy, DepEd standards like PPSSH define this expectation clearly. All three research, real-world practices, and policy agree that instructional leadership is essential. Now, let's talk about the context of our subject. Instructional leadership isn't just theory, it's the backbone of the profession. And for you to think about, what one thing can you do tomorrow to support teaching and learning? My suggestion is you have to keep it simple and keep it doable. 1% better every day. As we end this part of my presentation, allow me to share the final message for all of us. And here is that instructional leadership is not a title, it is a daily practice, a choice to support teaching and learning in everything we do. So that is all for now. I hope we understand what is the power of the instructional leadership. And hope we see you to the next episode. We're gonna talk another educational topics about schools, systems, and education. So see you in our next episode. So as we end this day, I'm encouraging you, if this episode resonated with you, if you've ever felt overwhelmed, if you want to understand AI clearly, simply, and confidently, then I invite you to join my free masterclass, AI School of Future, What Every Teacher Must Know in 2025. Together, we'll explore how AI can support teaching and learning in real, practical, and meaningful ways. See you inside.